Hello, welcome to our video notes on plant reproduction cycles. So most plants reproduce sexually in order to create more plants. They complete their reproductive cycles in 2 stages. In each stage, the plant produces different cells that contribute to the reproduction of the plant. In the first stage, known as the sporophyte stage, a plant produces spores that will eventually develop into gametes. In the second stage, known as the gametophyte stage, a plant produces male and female gametophytes. These will eventually be involved in the process of fertilization, which occurs when a sperm cell unites with an egg cell to create a new organism. These 2 stages, sporophyte and gametophyte, are considered cyclic. That's an important term. Cyclic means they repeat over and over, each stage leading to the other. So sporophytes producing spores leads to our gametophytes, which produces gametes. Those are sex cells. And those gametes produce sporophytes, which are spores, which then produce gametophytes, which produce sporophytes, and you get that ongoing cycle. Let's get really specific. Think back, we've learned about non-vascular plants. So mosses and other non-vascular plants produce sporophytes that resemble small trees or flowers. The sporophytes release spores that grow into male and female gametophytes. So that's over here. We have our mature sporophytes that look like small trees or flowers, and they release spores that will then grow into our male gametophyte and our female gametophyte. These gametophytes produce the sperm and egg cells that are needed for a zygote, or a fertilized egg, to form and develop into a new sporophyte. So I have my sperm and I have my egg. Those are my male and female sex cells, or gametes. And then when they are fertilized, so when the egg and sperm are combined, I get a zygote. And that zygote is what grows into my mature sporophyte. So if we think about our stages, this orange stage where I have my sporophytes, this would be the sporophyte stage. You want to write out that whole term. And then over here, this would be my gametophyte stage. All right, there is another type of reproductive cycle. So if we have seedless non-vascular plants, it works a little bit differently. The stages of a seedless vascular plant, such as ferns, is similar to non-vascular plants in some ways. We still have sporophytes developing spores that develop into gametophytes, but fern gametophytes have both male and female structures in the same plant that produce sex cells. When a sperm cell fertilizes an egg cell, a new sporophyte begins to develop. So I have my spores, and they start to grow. In ferns, they make this little heart-shaped plant. And then within the same plant, I have my sperm and my egg. There's fertilizing, and then I start to grow a new fern plant. All right, what about other vascular plants? And we're going to talk about gymnosperms and angiosperms. These are 2 types of vascular plants. So those are my gymnosperms and angiosperms. These are new terms we want to really think about. Unlike ferns and mosses, so our non-vascular plants, angiosperms and gymnosperm gametophytes actually develop inside structures within the larger sporophyte. So these aren't separate stages of the plant where they look very different. This is occurring within the same plant, just in different structures. In gymnosperms, they develop inside cones, think pine cones, and in angiosperms, they develop inside flowers. So gymnosperms, cones, angiosperms, flowers. So if we look at our picture here, we have a mature sporophyte plant, right? That looks kind of like a daffodil or another pretty flowering plant. And I have the female gametophyte and the male gametophyte. And that's pollen, right? These should look like familiar structures. So this is my gametophyte stage. There's fertilization that occurs. I get my zygote. That's my new fertilized cell that's going to develop into its own organism. And then that's where my sporophyte develops into a seed germinates, and then I grow my new plant. So let's really dig into what's happening in these plants. So pollen, we've all heard of pollen, I'm sure. So pollen is the male gametophyte, male sex cell in these types of plants. Pollen contains cells that will mature into our sperm cells. For reproduction to occur, pollen must travel to the female gametophyte so it can fertilize the egg cells. This process of transferring pollen from the male reproductive structures to the female reproductive structures is called pollination. So pollination is the moving of pollen, or male gametophytes, to the egg, or the female gametophytes. Pollination must occur in these plants before fertilization can occur. So pollination is getting the pollen to the egg cell, and then fertilization is when the sperm develops and it can actually unite with the egg.